Hey everybody, welcome to the newest edition of our chess opening survey. And today I wanted to pick another opening that is easy to learn and could possibly get you some wins early on in the game. This is kind of known as more of a beginner type of opening, but it's a great tool to use if you're playing somebody who's a little bit less experienced and they probably won't know the best way to handle this. And today I've changed the format a little bit. You can see in the top right corner, what I'm going to start doing is listing some pros of the opening in green and then some of the disadvantages in black. And so that should be left up on your screen so you could see that. And I've got a new board here which will be a little bit more easy for me to draw arrows and explain things to you. So hopefully you like this format a little bit better. As you can see, the pros of this opening, like I said, you can win quickly. It's a kind of an opening trap, and if your opponent falls into it, then you'll be happy with the game you get. And if your opponent does fall into it, then you get to attack their king. So that's always fun to do, and it's very difficult to defend it for your opponent. And then the disadvantage is if your opponent really knows what they're doing, if they're kind of like a tournament player who's studied openings before, there is a way that they can defend where white really has no advantage whatsoever. And in fact, black can sometimes even turn the tables and get a good position. So obviously, no chess opening is perfect, and so this is something that you can try to get quick wins with. And if your opponent really knows what they're doing, then you're in a battle. So I'll show you one example game here from Alexei Shirov. I talked about him in a game before. He's known for being one of the most aggressive players, and he actually had a high-rated player who went into this risky line against him. I'm not sure why he did it, but very, very few top grandmasters will go into this line just because they don't want their king to be attacked. So let's go over this game. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6. This is one of the most common starting positions in all of chess. And bishop C4. So one of the weakest squares on the board at the beginning is this F7 square because only the king protects it. And so right now we're already attacking this square with our bishop. So the next move obviously is kind of a normal looking move. Typically you want to develop your knights and your bishops early, and so black plays knight F6. What could be more obvious? The one potential drawback to this, and again there is a way for black to defend this, but you do allow knight to G5. And that, first of all, your knight on F6 prevented your queen from protecting the square. And now you can see the knight and the bishop both attack this square. So black is under some pressure here. Now the only way to stop either the knight or the bishop from taking this pawn on F7 is to play D5, just to put something in the way. But the issue here is white can take this pawn. Now, the best move for black here is to play knight A5. But that is kind of a hard move to know if you don't already know it, if you haven't studied this position yet. And a lot of your opponents will play knight takes D5, which is what Shirov's opponent here played. And this guy is rated 25-44, and he went into this. So the trick here and the point of this opening is that you can sacrifice your knight here. Knight takes F7. And right now you're forking the queen and the rook here. So black is forced to take this. And then the big move that comes next is queen F3 check. So the queen is attacking the king and the knight at the same time. Black can't afford to, for example, move the king away to any square and just allow this knight to be taken because they're already down a pawn. So he's forced to come up to the center of the board and protect this knight again. So now he's got his king and his queen protecting it. White has two pieces protecting it. One thing to note here is the knight cannot move because if it moves, obviously white would take black's king. So Let's just add to the pressure. The knight's pinned, let's just attack it again. So Shirov plays knight to c3. Now, the only move to protect this, again, is to move this knight either to e7 or b4 to protect this knight again. So white chooses knight to b4. He's also attacking this pawn now, threatening check and fork to win white's rook here on a1. But Shirov actually just ignores it. And he says, fine, go ahead, move your knight here, because then it will be defending this knight. So black is pretty much obliged to do this. He takes the pawn. Shirov just moves his king over because he's in check. And white takes the rook in the corner on a1. But now white says, okay, you've got 2 pieces defending this knight, and I've got 3 pieces attacking it. So this is exactly what I want. So white takes with the knight, and with the idea that now this bishop and this king are lined up on each other, and if it was white's move here, he could move the knight somewhere, and it would be check on the black king. So black moves his king out of the way. White continues to add pressure to the center and just basically trying to open things up. You know, if black was to take this pawn, white could play bishop f4 check. But basically, as a general rule in chess, if your king is in the center like black's king is here, and your opponent has all these pieces around your king, you're in big trouble. So you really want to try to avoid this. And if you can sacrifice a pawn or a piece and get some material back and get your opponent's king in the center, that's something that's very advantageous, and you want to try to do that. So black played bishop e6, just trying to get a piece developed and protect his center again. White brings another piece into the game. He's not trying to go too fast. He's just developing his pieces and adding pressure to the position. Black attacks white's bishop. He's just trying to do anything he can to defend the position. And then white plays this creative move, knight to b4. And the idea is that he's now threatening to bring his queen here to c6. The knight protects that square. And for example, if white was able to play queen c6 check here, the king only has one square, which is e7, and then this bishop can get into the game, which would check the king, and the queen would be behind it and forced to be taken on the next move. So black knows really that there's no way to stop all this stuff. He takes white's bishop, just trying to get some material back for the impending queen loss that he's going to have. And Shirov goes ahead and moves on with his plan, and he checks the king, and then he takes the queen. So this opening has been a huge success for the white pieces. He just won black's queen. Black's king is still stuck in the middle of the board with not very good protection, and that's going to be decisive. Shirov wins another pawn for check, wins another pawn, and he continues to add pressure to the position, winning more material as he goes, and just getting his pieces onto better squares. There was a discovered check. White moved his pawn out of the way and allowed his queen to be attacking the black king. And then now again, Shirov is getting more pieces into the attack. This is a cool sacrifice here. He takes the pawn, and black actually just resigned here. If black were to take this rook back, then white could play queen to e6, check, and then take the rook on the next move, and this pawn is going to get down there and get a queen. So obviously a really cool game. With the fried liver, white was able to get his opponent's king into the middle of the board so that he could attack it. And I'll show you later on in some videos the best ways for black to play against this. So if you do run into somebody that does know what they're doing, you can at least get an equal game and a position you can fight from. And obviously, if they go into this position, then you're in really good shape. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want to see more like this, I hope you subscribe to the channel. Thanks, and have a great day.